Dudes, what's happening? It's Trent, and I wanted to talk to you today about having your portfolio rejected from your favorite game studio. What's that like, and how should you absorb that information? Because there's two kind of important things to recognize. There's the physical analytical state of evaluating our the quality of our work, and then there's the internal dialogue of how do we utilize this information to further ourselves, to strengthen ourselves and prepare ourselves for a better presentation the next time we go around, and not quit, basically, because a lot of times, when faced with being rejected for your artwork, it's really easy to just go, well, I'm not good at it, so I guess I give up, or something like that. In the background, I'm going to be running an old painting that I had done about a year and a half ago. It just seemed to be a good fitting kind of an image for this type of conversation. So the first part. So how do you digest this information? First of all, you have to really ask yourself, are you at the skill level for the company that you're applying to? And you should really consider if you're up to the skill set that they're working in. Look at some of the artists that work there. Really hold their work next to yours. Literally pull it up in Photoshop next to your own work and ask yourself, does this look like the stuff that they do? If it's not, then there's work to be done, and you should consider buying tutorials from some of the artists that have worked there if they have anything on Gumroad. Try to dissect their psychology and the way that they think, because usually game studios are going to hire artists that are as good, if not better, than the artists that they currently have. You also want to consider whether or not you're presenting your work in a professional manner. I mean, I see a lot of portfolios when I do workshops and when I do talks around the world, and I see a lot of the same mistakes that still kind of happen, and that's why I put together a portfolio workshop that'll just kind of help you to avoid some of the very amateur kind of pitfalls that a lot of people fall into. And these are just sort of like checkbox stuff that's generally true for almost every studio, things that are going to make your portfolio look unprofessional, or not to be taken seriously. My portfolio workshop comes with templates and some guidelines as to how to tailor your portfolio to better suit the studio that you're applying to. So there's a lot of cool stuff in there. I encourage you to pick that up to get the edge on your competition, because every other artist that you see is in fact your competition. I no longer apply using a portfolio for any of the jobs that I do. So the reason why I can kind of give you my templates is just because I kind of get just, I talk with a lot of HR guys, I talk with a lot of developers, and they're just sort of kind of tired of seeing a lot of the same amateur mistakes happen in people's portfolios. I want to help you along, give you that edge, and give you some greater opportunities if you utilize that. But the biggest thing that you want to consider is the internal dialogue, the psychology of how you handle this rejection. How do you handle, being shot down by your sort of, your art idols, your favorite artists or your favorite company. And the thing to recognize is that, first of all, no just means not now. And what that means is that sometimes the team that you're applying to, they just don't need somebody at that time. And so 6 months later, a year later, the order comes down and through HR, they put up a listing or something like that, and you've already missed out because you decided, oh, I don't need to apply again because I was rejected before. Just recognize that the needs of a team are going to shift and change all the time, constantly. They might be wrapping up their project and not even looking at portfolios because they're just in crunch mode every single day. And you got to look at it from their perspective of where they're at. The next thing you want to consider is that maybe stylistically, you're not a good fit at that time, and the art director maybe is going to change, or maybe the art manager or the lead concept artist or the lead artist is going to change, and his tastes are going to change. Some artists and some art managers or some art directors are really interested in an anime kind of a look, and others are going to be more interested in a more of a Brahm fantasy oil painting kind of a look. And that's not something you can control, and you shouldn't really beat yourself up over that. It just happens to be at that time that's what they're looking for. It has nothing to do with you. Don't take it personally. And remember to have a good time with it and really enjoy the process of developing your own skills. If you get obsessed with the goal you're going to miss out on the big picture, the whole thing, which is the journey of personal development, the journey of looking at your own artwork and realizing your flaws and how you want to improve. Right now, before you work in a studio, you're absolutely free. You're free to choose your personal heroes, the kind of art style that you want to pursue. You don't have an art director telling you what you're supposed to like or what you're supposed to appreciate or rendering techniques that you're supposed to understand. You have absolute freedom to choose your own path as an artist, and that could lead you to a number of different awesome places. And a lot of this goes into your personal psychology. Now, me personally, I tend to let the universe unfold as it decides. The more I try to fight it, the more I try to shape it, the more I end up getting pushback, and then I become unhappy. I become really frustrated. And I know a lot of very successful game developers that are very frustrated simply because they don't feel that they're free to pursue things as an individual. They have to kind of fit into the template of whichever studio it is and whatever project it is that they're working on. It's kind of hard to have a personal identity or a personal style or build any kind of personal identity or style when you have somebody else shooting down all of your work all the time or telling you that no, you're supposed to appreciate this other kind of an art style. And especially if that's backed up by a paycheck, which becomes ultimately a very big incentive. And then once you have it, also consider the reality that you become afraid to lose it. The higher you climb and the more you accomplish, the more the more successful you become, the more afraid you become to lose that or to be judged for that. And ultimately, it's sort of a futile thing to chase it for that. The real reason to pursue game development is not for the big successful career or the big successful, badge over your desk or whatever. Those are nice things, but if they become your focus, then what happens when you lose them? Because eventually everything goes. Eventually we get older. Somebody asked me the other day, is this an industry for people over 50? They read an article saying that most developers don't want to hire people as they get older. And I know that can be sometimes true, but it also forces us, I think, if you're focused on the journey and if you're focused on personal development, then you don't really ever have to worry about that. The thing to remember is that this is a pursuit. If you choose the path of being an artist or a concept artist, especially in production or game development, it has to be a pursuit of personal development. It can't be about the big successful titles or brands. I can tell you, I've shipped, good God, I've lost track, 6 or 7 AAA games. If you look up the top 10 best-selling games of all time, I've shipped like 4 or 5 of these. And it doesn't change anything. I can still send my portfolio to some studio and be rejected because that art director just looks at me and goes, well, I don't have any use for a Blizzard artist or an artist with your art style. And maybe that's just how he chose to see my work. It was first impression. It's just how he chose to see it. And I can't change that he's not going to value me. I personally choose a philosophy of going to studios that really appreciate me. I go to studios where they're going to look at my artwork and say, wow, he's got something cool, something special. And I've been at studios where I've been that guy and it's so much more fun. I've also been in that situation where, I'm working right next to another guy who I don't particularly appreciate his work as much as the art director does, and he's telling me to paint like him. And so that becomes very frustrating. And hopefully, those situations, you can find a middle ground where they can appreciate you for your role and what you bring to the table. And you yourself can look at this desired art style of the team, of the art director, and find a way to adapt and adopt a lot of the styles and techniques. And then hopefully you can find a way to actually appreciate it and really implement it into your own flavor, your own taste. But getting back to the initial reaction, I think it's important to recognize that sometimes we're just not ready for the challenge ahead of us. Sometimes we're not ready for the thing that we really think we want the most. And so getting rejected from that particular job might be a really great opportunity for you. This is a good time to kind of get a bit of a mean on, buckle down, stay up all night, trying to prove them wrong, and that's a good motivator sometimes. But the most important thing is to not quit. Don't give up on that. Just recognize that maybe you got to find a new technique, a new approach. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. If you're just feeling burned out or frustrated, go back and dig into some of that artwork from some of your favorite artists that really got you inspired and motivated to get into it in the first place. Maybe play that game. Every developer I know has that one game that they can point to and say, this is the reason why I wanted to make games. And go back to that source material and don't give up on it. Just change a little bit, just modify. Just look at yourself and kind of go, what am I missing that they already have? And what are they missing that I might be able to bring to the table? When I used to apply for jobs, I never looked at the studios that didn't need me. I never looked at just the studio's already, the best artists and the best selling games. I never looked at studios like that. I always looked at what studios have a cool game that has good gameplay and a cool relationship with their audience, but they lack a little bit of the art style that I have. What studios really need me? Those are the studios that I would apply to. And ultimately, it always worked out pretty damn well. I got a pretty good history of working on some pretty cool games. And eventually, they start to stock up on more artists, and everybody wants to go and work there because they're making something that's really genuinely a good game, regardless of the art. You just get to kind of go along for the ride and pretty it up. That's the best part. Working with a team of badasses. Yeah. So that's it for my tips on how to handle your portfolio rejection. I hope that helped you through through that. It can be a really tough time. Don't let it be. Ultimately, it's not the events, it's how you interpret them that really is important. After I did get a job at Blizzard, I hung up all of my rejection slips over my desk as a reminder. Just never give up. If you have any funny stories about your portfolio being rejected, I would love to hear those. Please drop those in the comment section below the video. And I will catch y'all in the next video. And dudes, remember, if you're gonna get your portfolio rejected, get your portfolio rejected with some frickin' passion, man. Yeah.